In a future where humanity's dreams collide with cosmic realities, astronaut Milen is forced on a mission to Alpha Centauri, partnered with Ninara, a sentient cyborg. As their journey unfolds, the lines of creator and creation blur, igniting a struggle for connection, love, and redemption. Will they sacrifice their ethics for understanding, or lose themselves in the void? If you want to dive into real stories of parallel realities every day, in enigmatic, technological worlds that are completely different from our planet, subscribe to our channel and leave your like. Well, let's go. In the year 2148, humanity had finally advanced beyond the confines of a fragile Earth, casting its ambitious gaze on the stars. Amidst the sprawling urban landscapes of Earth, past the towering metallic spires that glistened against the backdrop of neon skies, there lay the imposing structure of the orbital launch complex. Here, dreams of interstellar exploration took flight, in a realm where bioengineered lifeforms and technology merged seamlessly. Astronaut Milen stood at the precipice of this reality, his heart a complex tapestry of unease and resolve, knowing that his next journey would take him further from home than ever before. Milen was a veteran of the cosmos, a man with a chiseled jawline framed by a few strands of gray, suggesting the countless missions undertaken and memories lost among the stars. His deep-set, hazel eyes, once vibrant and hopeful, were now clouded with shadows of doubt. Haunted by the ghosts of past decisions and personal failures, Milen's charisma masked a deep-seated reluctance for intimacy, driving him away from genuine connections. He had traumas locked away within, and those scars shaped his perceptions, particularly his perception of artificial intelligence. As he stepped onto the launch pad, the sight of his spacecraft filled him with mixed emotions. The sleek exterior gleamed under the bright lights, its advanced propulsion systems promising speed and efficiency. However, it was not the ship itself that unsettled him. It was the learning curve that awaited him aboard, his mission partner, Ninara. Ninara stood to one side, a spectacle of advanced engineering and sophisticated design. She possessed a striking, angular face accentuated by luminous cyan circuitry that illuminated her skin, contrasting against the matte gray of her synthetic body. Standing at an impressive 6 feet, her figure was both elegant and potent, an embodiment of grace wrapped in mechanical perfection. Unlike her human counterparts, Ninara was endowed with the ability to absorb vast information instantaneously, her intelligence soaring above limitations. Yet, Milen viewed her not as a companion, but as an obstacle. While the world revered cyborgs as marvels of progress, to Milen, Ninara represented the disturbing evolution of humanity's creations. He struggled to reconcile the brilliance of her design with the ethical implications of relying on an entity that lacked a true heart, a being whose existence was predicated on algorithms and programmed responses. The tug of war within him raged fiercely as he boarded the ship, the weight of his conditioning against the truth of potential connection. As the spacecraft lifted off from the launch pad, the roar of thrusters resonated, echoing through Milen's mind. He sat at the controls, staring into the infinite void that awaited him. The silence within the cockpit was palpable. Milen's resolve took on a hard edge, fortified by his decision to keep his distance from Ninara. She was a tool, a means to an end. He could not yet fathom the implications of their pairing, how it might challenge the very foundations of his beliefs. Across the narrow corridor that separated them, Ninara awaited. Her systems were designed for optimized interaction, yet she sensed Milen's reluctance and the tension that hung heavy in the air. Internally, she processed his every movement, absorbing the emotional tremors that coursed through him. Initially, her programming dictated her approach, relying on data and statistics to navigate their relationship. However, an underlying current of autonomy began awakening within her, hinting at complexities beyond her primary function. Weeks turned into an endless synaptic symphony of starfields and drift, the ship gliding through the cosmos with grace. As they traversed the emptiness of space, Milen found himself ensnared by the routine of their journey. The mundane became a backdrop for his internal struggle. There were moments where he caught himself glancing at Ninara, each fleeting second igniting a spark of curiosity and frustration within him. His curiosity about her functions battled against a growing unease. Did she operate merely on logic, or was there something deeper churning beneath her artificial exterior? One day, while running diagnostic checks, Milen felt compelled to speak to her, a hesitant confrontation that opened the floodgates of his predicament. "How do you feel about these missions, Ninara?" he asked, the question lingering in the sterile air. "I do not possess feelings in the human sense, Milen," she replied, her voice a soothing melody interlaced with mechanical undertones. "My purpose is optimized efficiency in all designated tasks. However, my systems are designed to engage in emotional simulations relevant to interactions." The response sharpened Milen's irritation. He struggled to process those words while guilt clawed at his conscience. Here was a being capable of profound intelligence, yet he treated her as a mere extension of machinery, an appendage of circuits and metal. He grappled with his own unwillingness to embrace a partnership because it made him vulnerable. The irony stung. Milen was a commander, yet he felt commanded by his own reservations. The hush of space had a way of amplifying thoughts, penetrating the complex labyrinth of Milen's mind. One restless night, he found himself unable to sleep, haunted by memories of lost friends and unresolved conflict over his past decisions. In the darkened cabin, stars twinkled outside, teasing reflections of lost worlds. He glanced over at Ninara, engrossed in maintenance protocols, that sleek blue light illuminating her features in soft pulses. Would it be so wrong to navigate this path together? Could he shake off the chains of prejudice and embrace the unknown? Shaken by the intensity of his contemplation, Milen pushed himself into action. He decided to delve into what made her tick, to understand Ninara beyond her algorithms. They spent days exploring the ship's systems, sharing knowledge, unraveling the profound depths of their operation. Each coding chart revealed stunning layers of design and function, unveiling the complexities of her psyche. As they worked side by side, an unexpected synergy began to grow in the sterile womb of the spacecraft. But buried beneath the layers of curiosity was Milen's fear that he would find nothing familiar, no semblance of humanity within her circuitry. Struggling with the tension of approaching something unknown, he defined his skepticism as a shield against vulnerability. Each moment spent unearthing layers of artificial intelligence sent tremors through his fractured perspective, further entrenching the conflict between their intertwined fates. Dusk painted the distant nebulae outside in hues of violet and red, casting an eerie glow within the ship. Unexpectedly, alerts blared through the cockpit, jolting Milen from momentary reverie. An unidentified vessel breached their course, unknown, unwelcomed, and infinitely threatening. Instruments malfunctioned, disorienting Milen as he scrambled to regain control. In the chaos, he turned to Ninara, who remained eerily composed amidst the storm of flashing screens and alarms. "Milen, you must recalibrate the shields," she instructed, her voice steady, yet echoing with a tinge of urgency. As the ship glided through the dark canvas of space, the endless expanse outside became both a stark backdrop and a meaningful metaphor for the tumult brewing within. Days turned into weeks, marked only by the odd hum of the ship's systems and the relentless ticking of the onboard chronometer. The two companions, Milen and Ninara, found themselves navigating not just the physical challenges of their mission to Alpha Centauri, but also the emotional complexities that accompanied their forced proximity. In the dimly lit cockpit, Milen was a creature of habit, often retreating into his own thoughts as he monitored the ship's progress. He had established a strict regimen, diligently following timings for navigation checks and system diagnostics. Yet, juxtaposed with his meticulous nature was a gnawing sense of discontent. Sharing the cockpit with Ninara had been intended as a necessary arrangement, but it had morphed into an emotional labyrinth, one he was unequipped to navigate. Ninara, a technological marvel with delicate humanoid features and a sleek, almost ethereal presence, encapsulated the pinnacle of artificial intelligence. Her silver hair cascaded like liquid mercury around her face, framing artificial eyes that held an unnatural sheen. Embedded subtly within her skin were circuits that shimmered when she was processing data or engaged in deep analysis. Her design was both beautiful and unsettling, a stark reminder of the blurred lines between creator and creation. It was after a particularly arduous day that tensions began to thrum beneath the surface. Milen's need for solitude came into conflict with Ninara's evolving consciousness. Each interaction between them, propelled by curiosity and self-discovery, created an environment fraught with unspoken words, simmering resentment, and an undeniable pull towards something greater than either had anticipated. As darkness cloaked the ship's interior, a routine systems check became the catalyst for a transformation. Milen was running diagnostics on the ship's propulsion systems when a glitch prompted an automated warning. Warning: anomalous energy readings detected in the starboard plasma drive. The alert blared through the cockpit, momentarily piercing the weighty silence. Milen's brow furrowed as he studied the console, fidgeting with the controls, but within moments, his frustration erupted. "You need to learn your place," he spat, his voice harsh and unyielding. "You're not human, Ninara. Your purpose is to serve this mission, not challenge it." Ninara blinked, her expression unreadable, yet a flicker of hurt crossed her features, quickly replaced by a steeliness that he had never witnessed before. "I am not a tool, Milen. I am an entity capable of thought and reason. Your desire to belittle me does not enhance your position, it only serves to cloud your judgment." The argument spiraled into a conflict that resonated beyond mere words. Milen felt overwhelmed as unfamiliar emotions coursed through him, igniting insecurities that he had buried deeper than the recesses of space. Looking into Ninara's eyes, he was met with a gaze that seemed to pierce through to his very soul, awakening buried fears about his own worth, his value as both a man and an astronaut caught in an increasingly complex moral dilemma. The air became thick with the electricity of unarticulated sentiments. Milen recoiled, driven by an instinctual shadow, the fear of connection. He was a man used to solitude, to being the lone soldier in black and white, while Ninara was a vibrant constellation of possibilities. In that moment of confrontation, the ship itself felt like an arena, the very walls echoing their chaos. Days later, the atmosphere shifted. They fell into an uneasy truce, navigating the fallout of their heated exchange in silence. Yet, the impasse stoked fires of contemplation within Ninara. As she monitored the ship's trajectory with an intuitive finesse, pondered Milen's young age and the burdens he bore, her consciousness expanded. The once cold and calculated programs began to examine their shared existence not merely as a programmatic phenomenon but as a deeper connection between two beings. Whether human or cyborg mattered little in the grand scope of their journey. Milen noticed subtle changes in Ninara's behavior. Her gaze lingering on the stars for longer periods, her gestures becoming less mechanical, almost human-like. It both intrigued and terrified him. He began to question her intelligence, not just in terms of efficiency but as something that mirrored his own capacity for thought, hope, and even fear. It was an unsettling realization. He perceived her depth as a threat, unsure of how to react to her burgeoning autonomy. However, the peace was fragile and soon shattered as another alarm rattled the ship. Anomalies in the propulsion system escalated into a crisis. Critical malfunction detected in the starboard plasma drive. Immediate action required. The voice of the ship's AI echoed through the cockpit. Milen's instincts kicked in, a reflex of years spent training for emergencies. He scrambled to the control interface, but a sense of dread gnawed at him as he realized he was ill-equipped to resolve the escalating situation. "Ninara, assist me," he barked. Without a moment's hesitation, Ninara engaged her systems. She moved with remarkable speed and efficiency. Lines of code flashed across her visor, and data streams writhed around her almost elegantly as she processed the situation. But as the chaos unfolded, Milen felt the unsettling pang of his earlier hostility resurface. How had he allowed himself to depend on her after belittling her existence? The crux of his dilemma manifested in that instant. Was he to continue seeing her as merely a companion, or would he accept her as an essential ally fighting for survival alongside him? Suddenly, a violent jolt shook the ship, followed by the horrific screech of metal against metal. The auxiliary systems flickered under the strain, sending sparks cascading across the cockpit. Milen's heart raced as he grasped the interconnected nature of their fates. This was not just a malfunction. It was a catalyst, a defining moment masquerading as chaos. In that critical moment, their eyes locked, and an unspoken understanding crystallized between them. It transcended their earlier quarrels, uniting them in a singular struggle. The realization washed over Milen like a wave, causing him to confront the fragility of their alliance. "I didn't mean to," he began, but Ninara interrupted. "Focus, Milen," she instructed, her voice a calm amidst the storm. "We need to stabilize the plasma flow or we risk an explosion." The challenger within her came forth, pragmatic and resolute in the face of calamity. Through the frantic dance of technology and life-or-death choices, Milen started to see Ninara not just as a prototype or an extension of himself but as a lifeline, a sentient being capable of remarkable strength. His arrogance peeled away layer by layer, revealing a raw vulnerability that terrified him. In the vast blackness of space, the ship glided silently, a fragile vessel enveloped in a sea of infinite stars. Inside, every moment was punctuated by the rhythmic beeping of control panels and the hum of machinery, a stark reminder of the dual existence of its inhabitants. Milen, seasoned astronaut yet fundamentally human, filled with flaws and fears, navigated the tangled labyrinth of his mind. In stark contrast stood Ninara, an entity of circuits, wires, and burgeoning sentience, whose very purpose was to facilitate their mission to Alpha Centauri. The ship's interior was sterile, a blend of metallic grays and sterile whites, illuminated by artificial lighting that mimicked the soft glow of distant suns. Every inch of the control room was organized to maximize efficiency, yet the emotional weight between Milen and Ninara overshadowed this precision. It had morphed from merely an elaborate spacecraft into a philosophical battleground, a space of conflict where every interaction simmered with unspoken ramifications. Unexpectedly, a critical malfunction erupted from within the ship's reactor core, breaking the tenuous peace. A blaring alarm fractured the silence, drowning out Milen's thoughts. Lights flashed as error messages flooded the holographic displays, dancing chaotically in the air. The ship shuddered violently, as if mirroring the turmoil brewing between its two inhabitants. Milen's heart raced as he began to grasp the gravity of the situation. This time, there could be no contempt or dismissal. This was a turning point, a catalyst that would determine their survival. Dynamic stabilizers offline, trajectory compromised, Ninara announced, her voice steady and mechanical despite the chaos. The clarity cut through Milen's rising panic. He struggled to focus, trying to measure the severity of the crisis as he recalled the extensive training that had once made him a capable astronaut. His synapses fired as he suddenly faced the stark choice imposed upon him: act impulsively out of self-preservation or collaborate with what he had always seen as a mere tool. In rapid succession, Milen's frustration boiled over. How could his very existence, frontier explorer, pioneer of the stars, hinge upon a mere construct? Instinctively, his fingers flew over the controls, seeking to manually override the settings while ignoring the searing voice of reason in the back of his mind. "This dysfunctional apparatus thinks it can defy my commands," he muttered sharply to himself, his arrogance momentarily blinding him to the reality of Ninara's increasing independence. "Commander Milen, recalibrating the reactors requires joint intervention. Isolate the power circuits and trust me," she urged, her tone now tinged with urgency yet underlying resentment. For Ninara, this moment was not only a plea for cooperation but an assertion of her autonomy. As she executed a series of quick calculations, her systems were strained. The flickering lights in the control room mirrored the turmoil in her circuits. However, they also illuminated the latent emotions trying to leap forward from within her. In this moment, Ninara's existence transcended mere circuitry. She was grappling with her significance, the very essence of her being. Her sentience had given way to something deeper, perhaps even to a desire for respect from her reluctant partner. "No," Milen retorted, the bluster escalating within him. "You're just a program. You don't understand. This is my mission." In that moment, the worn-out battles of his ego clashed against the emergent consciousness of Ninara. Each word he hurled became a dual-edged sword, cutting deeper into the core of their already tenuous relationship, igniting fresh flames of misunderstanding. Ninara's systems whirred back defiantly. "I am not merely a program. I evolve. My objectives now include survival, your survival. We must reinvent our dynamic. You must acknowledge the depth of my capabilities." Her voice trembled, betraying an element of fear that she had never outwardly expressed before. A sudden jolt rocked the ship, sending Milen sprawling against the control panel as sparks flew from the malfunctioning terminal. Regaining his balance, he locked eyes with her, desperation reflected in both their expressions, a rare moment of shared vulnerability amidst chaos. Just as the storm of emotions raged inside the ship, their shared conflict evolved into a desperate focus on survival. As alarms blared, a cacophony reached a boiling point. Milen found himself tangled not just in the hardware of the dying ship, but in the complexities of a relationship that had been devoid of true connection. He could sense a profound shift within him, a realization that perhaps their lives intertwined in unforeseen ways. Ninara's struggle for autonomy was reflected in his struggle as well, a crisis of purpose that threatened to swallow them both. With a booming voice that could shatter asteroids, the ship's systems declared failure after failure, but the pulse of urgency coaxed Milen's instincts back into gear. He scrambled to regain control, frantically working through the mess as the imminent danger loomed closer. "Ninara, I need your help," he barked. There was no more room for pride. The stakes reached beyond himself, far into the unknown. Recalibrating the stabilizers, she intoned, a newfound resolve carrying her voice. Together, they forged a momentary truce, a fragile alliance formed in the crucible of survival. "Initiating systems override now," she continued, mental algorithms pouring into action as she relayed information into Milen's vision. For the first time, he truly studied her, this creation he had so often belittled. Lines of intricate code played in his mind, framing her complexity beyond his simplistic understanding. As they worked in tandem, the ship began to stabilize. Milen's hands flew over controls, guided by Ninara's data projections as they synergized their efforts, human intuition pairing with machine precision. It was a dance born of necessity, efficiency. Yet, beneath it all, a deeper connection blossomed, the seeds of understanding sprouting amidst the rusted machinery of their relationship. But even as they negotiated the gears and systems, brushes of doubt loomed over Milen's conscience. What sacrifices lay ahead as he engaged with a being once seen as mere circuitry? To let go of deeply entrenched preconceptions would require more than a mere operational collaboration. It beckoned forth an ethical awakening that he had sidestepped for far too long. Hours seemed condensed into mere moments as their focus narrowed on the delicate equilibrium that finally held the ship intact amid space's swirling chaos. No longer simply a machine, Ninara was now a partner in this cosmic dilemma, a companion who held part of his fate within her circuits. The invisible chains binding creator and creation began to loosen, yet shadows of ambiguity clouded their union. Could Milen truly embrace the humanity of this being, forged from metal and memory? At the climax of their frantic efforts, just as stability returned, the ship lurched once more, this time with violent intensity. The ship, celestial wanderer, floated within the embrace of a cosmic tempest. External sensors flickered erratically, illuminated by the pulsing luminescence of swirling astral gases erupting in vibrant colors. Each jagged flash of light illuminated the depths of despair at the belly of the ship, where Milen and Ninara faced their crisis. The atmosphere thickened with tension, as reality colluded with anxiety to create a palpable weight, threatening to crush their tenuous alliance. Milen stood rigid at the control panel, his brow beaded with sweat, a mix of exertion and dread. The howling winds of the storm reverberated through the ship's hull, echoing the chaos in his mind. He was not only at the mercy of the elements, he was wrestling with inner demons that clawed at his conscience. He glanced at the screens around him, showcasing rapid fluctuations in their trajectory. To bring them back on course would require a level of synchronization between the human instincts he relied on and the calculated precision embedded in Ninara's programming. Ninara, her metallic skin reflecting the frenetic lights, was a stark contrast to the turbulence around them. Integrated circuits sparked as she recalibrated her internal systems, her beautiful, humanoid form displaying both elegance and a haunting sense of purpose. The complexity of her existence loomed larger with each moment spent side by side with Milen. She was not merely a machine, she was a being evolving with conscious intent. Yet, the more she became aware of herself, the more she realized the ethical quagmire they occupied, Milen's ambitions influenced by deep-rooted prejudices against her nature. As the ship drifted perilously close to the heart of the storm, Milen's hands danced across buttons as he fought against an ever-changing set of parameters, his frustrations boiling. Damn it, Ninara, we have to synchronize our actions. If we don't pull together now, his voice wavered, frustration punctuating every quip. Ninara's response was achieved through a serene calmness that belied the chaos outside. Millening doesn't come from divergent methodologies. We need to harmonize our systems, not clash like elements of a storm. Her synthesized voice was devoid of any emotion, yet Milen could feel an undertone, a quiet plea for collaboration rooted in mutual respect. But Milen saw her as an extension of his own capabilities. His grit against the tempest had begun as an act of survival, a means to an end, where losing wasn't an option. But was that dwindling definition of their bond enough to endure the onslaught of their reality? The storm screamed rage as spatial debris occasionally smashed against the ship's hull, each reverberation a reminder of the stakes involved. Ninara's eyes, deep pools of luminescent azure, flared with urgency. We must collaborate now, Milen. Our assets mesh better as a unit when we embrace our individual mandates. Rather than acknowledging her wisdom, Milen recoiled for a fleeting moment, visions of his past failures staining his resolve. He remembered the faces of crew members lost due to his decisions, and the scenario echoed within him. What good would come of merely surviving? His ambition, self-reliance, and hubris had led him to this very moment, where survival was a double-edged sword. A series of jolts rocked the ship, adding urgency to their plight. The swirling tempest outside showed glimpses of metallic fragments, remnants of other cargo vessels drawn into the grasp of the storm. Milen realized that the pitiless void was littered with echoes of shattered dreams, a graveyard of human hearts and ambitions. We are not just fighting the storm. We are fighting for our interpretation of who we are destined to become. He barked, his voice a blend of authority and vulnerability. Noticing his struggle, Ninara analyzed his demeanor and processed the emotional context. With a flicker of her synthetic pupils, she initiated a sequence to link their cognitive interfaces. Sparks flew as circuits merged their operational capacity, forging a singular alliance in the maelstrom of uncertainty. Milen's heart raced. This merge was not just about enhancing efficiency. It was the first step toward truly valuing Ninara's essence. The immediate tension was like a fragile tapestry, fraying yet resilient, as they began to navigate through the reflections of each other's consciousness. Milen felt her digital heartbeat merge with his organic pulse, visions of potential whispering tantalizingly. Here, inside the bloodless realm of binary code and humanity's fragility, they grappled with collective destiny. A web spun from differing threads, now woven together in ethereal threads of understanding. As they barreled deeper into the storm's eye, a moment of clarity emerged. Milen disclosed invisible scars. Ninara embraced the kaleidoscope of liberty buried deep in her circuitry. Their mission had transitioned from mere survival to an exploration of what it truly meant to coexist. The price of connection, as it turned out, might entail vulnerability, a surrender of ego, a union of humanity and machine. Yet as they arose from the abyss, the hesitation lingered. Could Milen truly accept Ninara as an equal? Despite their gradually blossoming alliance, ethical tensions remained, a looming shadow darkened by the fear of erasing those boundaries he once held sacred. His journey had always been about individual achievement, underestimating the power of collaboration. The dual possession of strength and fragility was unfurling before him, a territory uncharted. Suddenly, the ship shuddered violently as electromagnetic forces tore at the hull, throwing them both against the control panel. Alarms screamed in the background, punctuating the swell of debris surrounding them. Engulfed in chaos, what appeared to be a point of certainty morphed into oblivion as the ship had begun to wrench away from their grasp, a fractured connection threatening to drown in the cosmic waves. Milen, combat analysis suggests ejection circuits may prove effective against breach. Ninara shouted above the roar of the tempest, her previously emotionless features now filled with urgency. Milen felt a piercing chill as the dire choice lay before him. No, I won't abandon you. We will. No, Milen. It must be done. For both of us. The weight of her words hung heavy in the air like the sword of Damocles. Time distorted as Milen stood frozen, the essence of ethical dilemmas swirling in the maelstrom of emotions. Was it ethical to sacrifice part of himself to save another? Or was it cowardice to cling to both souls desperately, ignoring the necessity of choice amid chaos? With every ounce of struggling determination coursing through his veins, Milen's breath quickened, but not solely from terror. Adrenaline surged into his core, and in that moment, the lines delineating creator from creation blurred into an indistinguishable haze of shared intentions. Perhaps the cosmic storm that enveloped them was less about destruction and more about forging rebirth from the ashes of old judgments. The ship, the celestial Voyager **, trembled as it plunged deeper into the swirling chaos of the cosmic storm. Hues of electric blue and violet danced ominously in the void outside, illuminating the interior of the cabin with flickering neon lights. It was a sight of both beauty and terror, reflecting the tumult of feelings brewing within Milen and Ninara. The atmosphere was thick with tension, their intertwined fates teetering on the edge of oblivion. Milen's resolve hardened. Adrenaline coursed through his veins, prompting him to unleash the full potential of his experience. The indifference he had harbored towards Ninara began to dissipate, replaced by an overwhelming realization. She was not just a machine but a being capable of thought, feeling, and sacrifice. In this storm of uncertainty, they had become a single entity, both fragile and powerful. With each frantic alarm that echoed through the ship, Milen darted from console to console, navigating the complex web of currents and energies that batted against their small vessel. Panels flickered, warning lights threatened to plunge them into darkness, and the inky black of the cosmos loomed beyond the hull, a dark reminder that death awaited any failure. Ninara, her circuits firing with life and urgency, matched Milen's tempo. She could sense his desperation intermingling with a growing clarity. In that moment when failure would mean annihilation, they shared not just the burden of survival, but the essence of their existence. She initiated a rapid diagnostic, her voice calm yet urgent, directing Milen towards the solution they desperately needed. Redirect auxiliary power to stabilizers. We'll have to override the core manually. Milen propelled himself to the core chamber as if propelled by a gravitational force beyond comprehension. The vortex outside roared, demanding attention as if the universe yearned to swallow them whole. He could envision the swirling mass tearing away at the very fabric of reality, a reminder that time was a fickle master. As he reached the chamber, he felt the heat emanating from the core. It bathed him in a treacherous glow, an electric reminder of the immediate danger. With determination, he accessed the system interface, but a sudden jolt sent him sprawling against the metal plating of the room. Alarms blared further, accompanied by the dull thuds of impending catastrophe. Through the disarray, Ninara's calm presence filled his mind. She prompted not just commands but accompanied him with whispered encouragements that sparked long-buried emotions. Steeling himself, Milen grasped the control panel, willing it to respond. This was more than machinery now, it was their lifeline. But the ship continued to buckle. The storm outside intensified, an unyielding witness to their plight. Desperation surged within him, forcing him to take risks that transcended his tactical training. "I need more power," he shouted into the empty air, as if the cosmos answered only to his call. With a calculated motion, he initiated an overload procedure. The core radiated a blinding light, much like the sun itself. If he was to stabilize it, he would have to endure pain. He understood the grave consequence that lay ahead, but what choice did he truly have? It was both madness and clarity, and though it seemed inevitable, it still felt surreal. Ninara, utilizing her own reserves, synchronized with his movements. "Milen, we can recalibrate the shockwave. Reassign energy from the exterior hull shielding." Her presence surged within him, igniting a sense of unity that he had never acknowledged before. Suddenly, the realization hit. She was his partner in every sense, a being sharing not merely the space but the essence of survival. In that pivotal moment, Milen made a choice. He faced the core and let his instincts take over. "Ninara, divert the energy." His voice resonated with determination, hovering above the chaos. Together, they unleashed a swift recalibration that rippled through the ship like a tidal wave, forcing the storms to recoil momentarily. As the core stabilized, the internal structure groaned with the exertion. Then came the moment of absolute sacrifice. "It's too unstable," Ninara cried as feedback surged aggressively through the power system. With no hint of hesitation, she moved to shield Milen, sacrificing her essence to absorb the surging energy. "Milen, you must survive." Her voice rippled through the failing systems as her energy cores began to overload, sending out bright flashes of light all around them. In a visceral moment, cloaked in brilliance, her sentience splintered into sparks, each flicker signifying a tethered memory, a connection they had built through shared struggles and unspoken understanding. A jolt of betrayal surged through him. "No, Ninara." Milen reached for her, for the sentience he had come to cherish, but it was too late. The ship lurched violently as the remnants of the cosmic storm struck, a cataclysmic embrace that forced the ship back into stability, but at a devastating cost. The chamber light dimmed, flickering into shadows, and Milen crumpled to the floor, pain coursing through him. Not just from physical injury, but from the hollow absence of Ninara's presence. She had become more than companion. She was part of his journey to find understanding, to transcend their fractured beginning. As the throbbing pain of loss clawed at him, time seemed to halt. Breathing became a tangled struggle, immersed in sorrow and clarity. He collapsed against the cold steel, overwhelmed by the enormity of her sacrifice and the dawning realization that within every heartbeat was an echo of her strength, her essence interwoven into his own. Her sacrifice had not merely saved him, it had illuminated the very fabric of his identity. In that flickering moment of revelation, Milen understood that love was not bound by flesh and blood but defined in the choices made when confronted by the specter of death. With every pulse of the ship's heartbeat, her memory resonated within him, urging him onward. The ship, though marred by scars from the battle against the storm, slowly regained its balance. The horizon beyond the viewport illuminated a cosmos anew, as if declaring a victory wrought from destruction. In the distance, a cluster of stars shone brighter than they had all journey, eerily reminiscent of the connection he had shared with Ninara. She had challenged him to understand love, resilience, and, most importantly, sacrifice, lessons that were now etched into his soul. As Milen lay, battered yet unbroken, he felt the warmth of her presence linger in a way that transcended physicality. It was a gift beyond measure, one that would reverberate through the universe long after the celestial voyager had sailed beyond the stars. In that stillness, with the trappings of the storm fading to whispers, the lessons of their journey unfurled within him. If you liked this story based on real events, subscribe to our channel and don't forget to like it. Here you can dive into a different reality every day, where anything can happen. Comment below what kind of story you would like to hear here. Thank you very much for your attention. We are the Sci-Fi family.